If you get told all of your labs are normal, honey, are you sure you're not just a little depressed? People who struggle with myalgic encephalitis or long COVID can talk about tired, like wine connoisseurs talk about fine wine. There's all kinds of tired.
A little bit about Dr. Tufenkian. She is a licensed naturopathic physician with 25 years of experience. She focuses on the hidden drivers of long COVID, ME, and chronic fatigue syndrome.
And then the last one is actually where I start out talking about this, because I call it the gateway root cause, which is...
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity podcast. Americans are more tired, stressed, and hormonally broken than ever, and our institutions call it normal. If you've tried everything, diets, supplements, doctor after doctor, and you are still feeling exhausted, today with our guest, Dr. Jennifer Tufenkian, we dig into what's actually wearing you down and how to break free. I met Dr. Tufenkian when she graciously had me speak on her long COVID brain and inflammation summit. A little bit about Dr. Tufenkian. She is a licensed naturopathic physician with 25 years of experience. She focuses on the hidden drivers of long COVID, ME, and chronic fatigue syndrome, driven by her own experience with chronic fatigue. She has an approach that gives hope and answers for people struggling to regain their energy and vitality. Dr. Tufenkian is on a mission to get the health know-how you need into your hands so you can rock your life and your dreams. Hopefully, we can help her with that goal today. Dr. Tufenkian, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. So before we jump into your area of expertise, I always like to go back. I like to go much further back. What was it like growing up, little Jenny? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? And if there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become a naturopathic physician and a voice and trainer of root cause medicine, what or who would that be?
So little Jenny loved to be outside. Little Jenny lived in a town called Salem, which was a state capital city. And like many state capital cities, they're really boring. And I never understood why they were the state capitals when they're usually really boring. There's a few exceptions, most of them are boring. And I hated the tract home we lived in because it didn't have a big enough tree for me to climb in. And I wanted to move, and I was really happy when we moved to Portland, and I helped find our house. I just learned how to read, and I could read the for sale signs, and I helped my mom find a house that had lots of trees across the street from the woods. And so when we moved there, I got to spend lots of times in the woods, and I would make bandages for my dolls out of dandelion stems, and I would fix them with plants. And my escape fantasy when I was 8 years old was to run away to Colorado and meet somebody who would teach me how to use the healing ways of plants in the woods. I don't know where I got this from, but this was my escape fantasy as an 8-year-old. So I think I just kind of grew up with this desire to be with plants and healing. And when I look back at my history of when I decided to become a naturopathic physician, it was kind of a huge moment in my life. And all these things came together. But when I looked back at my roots as to what it is that drew me into naturopathic medicine, it was really the plants. It was my love of the botanical medicine. It was my love of what I learned in high school when I started studying herbs. It's what I was doing at home, and it was that brought me into naturopathic medicine. And then that just tied in with everything else. I always had this insatiable curiosity for people and things. I always wanted to help the world. I was very mission driven. In terms of just the world is a mess. How can I help? How can I help the people in front of me? And I was always everybody's counselor in high school too. I didn't get the cute guys, but I would counsel the cute guys on the girls who had broken their hearts. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So,
Excellent.
So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started being everybody's counselor. So that was kind of me starting in, I think, 3rd grade. I started
Yeah, yeah. No, we have some in common there because certainly, well, I think we shared in a call that we had before that my parents are from Oregon, so I used to go there, I don't know, fairly regular as I was growing up. You talked about curiosity and helping people and drive, right? Medical school, it takes drive. Parents, did you get some of that stuff from your parents who was maybe more influential in that regard?
In terms of drive and focus and going through medical school, I
Yeah.
think both my parents equally in different ways. My mom is super, my mom would be, okay, there's a problem, we're going to fix this, we're going to find the solution, we're going to figure it out. And she would just get a book and read about it or just figure it out. Let's like, she would just be like, this is what we're going to do. And she was very consistent and regular and just kind of just kept going and doing things. My dad was much more mercurial for good and bad. He was more passionate, impassioned. He was super fun to be with. He also suffered from depressions and things like that. So it was like kind of like trying to find him, but he was also a seeker. And he was actually a minister when I was a child. He quit when I was 6 years old and went in and did a lot of other work, but then returned to his spiritual growth self and actually got he had like 4 different careers, like really good careers, and was working on his fourth and got his PhD in divinity when he was in his mid 70s, and he was reading Jungian study dream groups, for like a decade. And so he was the seeker. And so I feel like he and I had a lot in common in terms of this. There's more than just this. What else is there? What does this mean to be here? And we're more of the feelers, and my mom was the doer. Like, let's just get this shit done. And I feel like I'm a combination of both of those where I can do both.
Yeah.
So
Very cool. It's interesting that as a young girl, Colorado was the target. There's so many. I have so many interviews. Colorado seems to be like the place where a lot of I don't know, longevity and wellness people landed. I wonder how you ended up focusing on something that actually seems very appropriate.
well, what's bizarre is that I didn't even go to Colorado until maybe just a few years ago. I mean, I've hardly been, like, I took a train through there when I was when I was 19, but I like haven't even been to Colorado. Like, I haven't done that yet.
All right. So, what did you study for your undergraduate? And then how did you know you were going to come to study medicine and maybe even the difference between kind of naturopathic medicine and, kind of traditional
Yeah.
medicine?
Well, like I said, I always had this desire to fix the world. I saw the world as being really effed up. I thought we would all die from a nuclear explosion by the time I was 28. I didn't think I'd have kids. I
You
just
didn't
thought
think we would be safe under our desks? Like I thought, because
yeah,
that
no,
was
I didn't think the desk was quite enough to protect us from the radioactive waves. I
for
actually
those
did a
who
deep
may not know,
dive.
there were drills when we were in school where you would get under the desk to protect yourself from a nuclear explosion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I never did those drills, but I remember studying all that stuff and it was crazy. It is insane. But anyway, so I studied political sociology in undergrad, and I was really interested in what's up with this power structure? What are we doing in this society? What is it made of? What are the decisions that go into creating a society and a culture? And how can we influence that so it's a better place for human beings to live? And so that's what I was studying. And I thought I would go on to sociology or go into law or all of that. And I was actually studying for I was taking graduate classes in sociology, and I was studying for my LSATs, and I was sort of going down that track. I also thought about going into education because I think education is so key and critical thinking is so important. And I think that that's the root cause of a lot of issues in this country, is that we don't have a good education system. But I really hated my public school and I just wanted to blow it up. So I couldn't quite get past the 5-year-old that just was mad. I just wanted to throw something. And so I decided to not go down that route, but I thought about law. And I was actually doing some legal work and for a business and doing some research for them. And I sat in that office in the library and I thought, you know what, there aren't any pictures in here except of some white dudes. And I started also thinking about from my apocalyptic kind of thinking was still in my head at that time of, if everything falls apart in society, this legal structure is actually based on things surviving as they are, I won't be able to help anybody if I'm in a different country, or or everything kind of falls apart. Again, very apocalyptic thinking at that time. And then I thought about this body, it's like, how is it that I could be really helpful? And all of these things kind of came together, and it was a real epiphany moment. I was actually, when I decided to become a doctor, I was 6 months pregnant with my first child. It was an unexpected pregnancy. I had just broken up with his dad and then found out I was pregnant, and then came back to America and realized I had just decided that I had this other crazy experience and realized I was just going to go ahead and single parent this kid. Didn't know what I was doing with my life. I didn't have any money. I mean, it was just a really crazy time. And I had this epiphany that I'd always wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't think I was smart enough because I got a bad grade in high school biology. And I read like the First Woman Doctor book over and over again as a kid. I had this interest in nutrition. I had this interest in herbs. I had this interest in human beings and psychology. I had all of these things. And when I started bringing this all together, I was like, this is medicine. And when I went out to look at what kind of medicine it was naturopathic medicine. And so I went and sat in my big tummy, my big pregnant tummy, and I went and visited the naturopathic schools in Seattle and Portland. And the one in Portland really resonated, which was handy because it's also where my parents lived, which meant that if I was going to single parent and go to medical school, it's pretty good to have your parents around. Yeah. So that was a lifesaver.
Plan. Yeah.
Good thing I like this school the best. And that's kind of how it went.
Very cool. Right. So you study naturopathic medicine. I didn't really find much about kind of what you did with that, but now you've shifted, and maybe talk a little bit about that. And now you've shifted into kind of really focusing on brain fog, chronic fatigue, long COVID. What kind of caused that shift?
Well, actually, throughout when I was in medical school, my second year of medical school, I got back together with my son's dad. We got married. And we were trying to have a second child, and I ended up having a series of miscarriages. And this was in second year of medical school. So I really thought I was Superwoman back then. I was like, okay, aced my boards, have a 5-year-old, time to have a second child, no problem. My body had a different thought, and I miscarried a couple times. And the second one was at 17 weeks. I hemorrhaged, passed out, had to be rushed to the hospital. I would have died had modern medicine not let me into its doors. And that's, super pertinent right now to think about. But that threw me into what I call a dark night of the soul. And I was very, very sick. I was in bed, couldn't make it to the bathroom without help. And I became ill. I had suicidal ideation. Had severe anxiety, and I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep. And my body was just breaking down. And I was very blessed to have people come and help me. And there are a couple things that happened in that time. One was I realized I had to choose to live. And so I forced myself to start eating, even though I could hardly swallow, made myself eat. I also had a hypnotherapist come and work with me. And that's when I understood the power of the subconscious mind and how this impacts us. She was able to get me out of the deep depression and the anxiety, and I moved from what I call the bed to the couch. But I had this thing that we had to all agree was chronic fatigue syndrome, even though I denied the label. And so I was sick for a while, for years actually. And I took a whole year out of medical school. So by the time I was in naturopathic school, you're in clinic with supervisors over you your last 3 years of school. When I was back in school after that time, I felt like that experience already made me a better practitioner, because although I didn't have a near-death experience, I was very close to death. And it made me also realize how much the body can recover when you give it the right tools. And I also understood how we are more than just this physical body, that there's more to it when we're talking about health and disease and wellness. And I was really able to be with my patients who are very sick. And I think I started to even back then, I was attracting the very sick, complicated patients. They tend to come to me even as a student clinician. Those were the ones that I got. And when I became a resident, the front desk would always send me the most challenging patients because they knew I could handle it. And not just from an intellectual perspective, but I could hold the space for them and where they were in their healing journey in a place. And I think that all came out of my experience of what I lived. And so that it chose me, is what I can say. It chose me. So it became a specialty very early on in terms of what I did. I've always worked with those people. And then when the pandemic hit, I anticipated we would have a second epidemic of this thing called chronic fatigue syndrome. I didn't know it was going to be called long COVID. I was teaching about that in March of 2020 and saying, watch out, people. It's coming. You got to be prepared. Nobody really wanted to listen. And, and here we are.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. So, one, you ace your boards. It's amazing. You said you got a bad grade in some biology class, and then this. I mean, this
I
is
never
what we're
studied
trying.
for it. I didn't study for that test. I didn't know that you had to study for tests. It was the first time. Yeah. And I was babysitting for a physician, and I was like, I got a C on this biology test. He's like, well, did you study? And I was like, what's that? And he's like, well, it's when you open the book and you read it, and you read the first, you like take a highlight and you highlight out the main topics that are in the book, and then you make notes, and then you review the notes. And I was like, oh yeah, nobody's ever told me to do that before. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, I
Now,
know. I really
is some of
sucky
that
education.
maybe because you were smart enough that you didn't need to study up until that point?
Well, yes, for everything except algebra. It didn't work for algebra either.
Yeah. Uh, Algebra tends to take the wind out of people. Like that can definitely be true. All right. So regarding ME, chronic fatigue and long COVID, let's call them the three fatiguers. What are they, and what distinguishes them from each other? And what is ME? Because it's a word I've chosen to just put ME because I might struggle pronouncing it.
Yeah, you're not alone there. So, chronic fatigue syndrome is the name that we have called this condition that is a whole bunch of different signs and symptoms, and there's no test for it, and it's been one of those things that's been around. The rest of the world has always called that very same thing myalgic encephalitis, or ME. And myalgic encephalitis means inflammation of the myalgia, the muscles, and encephalitis of the brain. So it's inflammation in the muscles in the brain. There's a movement in the United States to start calling it myalgic encephalitis, and we are at the changing tides point, so we call it both. So that's why we have to say MECFS, or myalgic encephalitis and chronic fatigue syndrome, so people know what you're talking about. You have to say both, and it's really challenging in social media because it's just so many words to get out. If you say migraines, people know what you're talking about, but you have to say a lot.
How about fibromyalgia? Does that fit in this realm in any regard?
It does. It does. I see it as a spectrum. It's technically a separate diagnosis because there's a separate workup you would do in terms of how much pain people have at certain points in their body. That said, when you go back and say, well, what triggers this in people? It's the same stuff.
Okay.
And it's the same pattern. So when I as a clinician, as I speak as a clinician, where what I want is for people to have transformations, to have results, to see their body getting stronger and healthier, for them to know, to feel empowered in their own healthcare. It's the same. We would be looking at the same things if somebody comes in with myalgic encephalitis or fibromyalgia. And people often have both together.
Okay.
So I see them as part of the same spectrum. What I say, chronic fatigue syndrome is a terrible name because everybody's tired and it means nothing. And I always say nobody's going to bring you lasagna if you say you have chronic fatigue syndrome. They're just going to say, yeah, I'm tired too, honey. Get over it. If you say I have myalgic encephalitis, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Can I drive your kids to school and help you out in any way? The thing is that's been really interesting with some of the research money that came out of the pandemic, looking at this post-viral thing that we now call long COVID. We were able to find that people in PET scans, when we put dye in their body and put them in a PET scan, what we're seeing is that when you put like a 58-year-old woman who does not have myalgic encephalitis compared to a 50-year-old woman who does have myalgic encephalitis in a PET scan with dye in, the one with myalgic encephalitis, her whole muscles and her brain are flared up. And this is really valuable for people who are struggling with this condition because a lot of people have been ghosted or told you're making it up. And to have actual evidence of like, this is what's happening inside of people's bodies is so powerful and so informative to understand. So long COVID, when I look at myalgic encephalitis, I look at and this was part of my journey of uncovering this, and what I do in clinic and what I teach other doctors is how to look for the different root causes. And somebody may have 1, 2, 3, or all 5 of these different root causes that will trigger this thing called myalgic encephalitis in somebody's body. One of those triggers is an infection that could be viral, bacterial, or fungal. And another one has to do with the emotional body, with the subconscious brain, with that limbic amygdala insula system attached to the vagus nerve, that autonomic nervous system dysregulation. When the pandemic hit, that's why I was like, hey, everybody, anybody wants to pay attention? We're going to have this other thing, and you could be prepared for your patients or for yourself, because one of the things are infections, and everybody's getting infected with this virus, and we don't know what it's going to do to your body, but it could cause a lot of havoc. And then the second thing is stress. Everybody in the whole planet is really stressed out right now, like more stressed than they've ever been in their whole life for many people. And we're getting the two together. So guess what? We are at risk. You're at risk. And so for me, long COVID is in the umbrella of myalgic encephalitis. It's the same thing. The triggering event for those people was getting the COVID infection, or we now know the vaccine can also trigger this in people as well. And so that was the inciting event. It was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. They had a setup beforehand that made them at risk to get it, which is why your wife got it and you didn't. But they had a different kind of setup that triggered it.
So you talked about kind of 5 root causes, right? Was it 5 or 6? 5 root causes. As you mentioned, infection, and then subconscious, the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah, so I call it limbic emotional dysregulation. It's tied in with that whole vagus nerve, autonomic nervous system piece. Yeah.
Are many people talking about that in terms of ME, or is that something that's kind of a little bit unique to your approach?
Yes and yes. I think that I was early in terms of seeing that there are all these different pieces that are connected. When I had a relapse of my myalgic encephalitis. I got 150% better after I was sick in medical school, got 150% better, had full energy all day long, didn't have to energy budget, was great. And then I didn't think I'd get it again. And then I did, and I crashed, and I learned how easy it is to relapse, which is part of what I teach people of how to avoid that relapse. And there's some really important keys, if we have time, we can get into. But what I did at that time was, because I was so sick and I needed to figure out how to get better because my family was dependent on me, I just started researching. And at the time, the research, everybody was saying chronic fatigue syndrome is started by one thing, and they were fighting about what that one thing was. Is it Epstein-Barr virus? Is it parvovirus? Is it this? Is it that? Is it the mitochondria? Is it this? And I started to realize that it's more than one thing. It's a compilation of things, and it might be different in each person. Like I said, you may have 1, 2, 3, or all 5 of them. And I put these different pieces together in terms of these 5 root causes. That was unique back then. But now all the research papers say this is a heterogeneous condition that's multifactorial, and they all start with that paragraph. And that's, decades later, it's now known that it's not the same for each person, and that is unique, and it does take work. So I think that, it's kind of a yes and yes. And I think also where I'm different is that because I've been thinking about this for so long and working with it for so long, I actually have a systematic way that I'm thinking and ruling in and ruling out these different root causes for people. And again, this is a clinical tool because most people feel really overwhelmed when they're experiencing these symptoms, and most practitioners are overwhelmed in treating these people. They don't know where to start, and they don't know, and they don't even believe that they can get well often, which is a lie. You can. But and so it's really, how do you begin to start? And it's through what you're listening for, because each one of these root causes has a different clinical has a different way of describing what tired feels like to them. People who struggle with myalgic encephalitis or long COVID can talk about tired, like wine connoisseurs talk about fine wine. There's all kinds of tired.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got infection. We've got this emotional. What phrase would you use?
I call it limbic emotional dysregulation.
Okay, and I got missed limbic. So limbic emotional dysregulation. We've got 3 more. What are the other 3?
So toxin overload, which includes mycotoxins, glyphosates, heavy metals, other pesticides, herbicides, all the junk we've created to make this beautiful, shiny world that we live in and enjoy. That's hard
Yep.
for our bodies to deal with. Yep, you know a little bit about that. And the mitochondria, mitochondrial dysfunction, which you also know quite a bit about.
Mm. And did I miss
And
one?
then
Because I've got four. Yeah.
yep. And then the last one is actually usually where I start out talking about this because I call it the gateway root cause, which is the hormone triangle. And the
Mm.
hormone triangle is looking at that adrenal gland or hypothalamic pituitary axis, if you want to use the official name for it, and the thyroid, and then ovary for female, male, testy for male. That's a triangle. Then the hormones in all three of those systems are always interacting with each other, and like a symphony, they work well when they're in tune together. But if one is out of tune, the others will try to adapt to match it, and it's really easy for your body to get into a dysfunctional state. I call this the gateway root cause because so many of us in this culture are on the stress express, the 24/7 expectation, productivity thing, some of what we've talked about in other conversations of that kind of, I'm super productive, isn't this great? I'm doing fantastic, I'm getting so much done, and yet not paying attention to what this is actually doing to your body or to your nervous system. And a lot of people enter this whole condition through having been on the stress express and have an imbalanced hormone triangle for years or decades, and then it makes them vulnerable to get an old infection get reactivated. So then they have the chronic virus plus the hormonal dysfunction, or it makes it so that their body can't detoxify as well, and so the toxins in their body start to wreak more havoc inside the mitochondria. So you can kind of begin to see how they begin to layer on each other.
So limbic emotional dysregulation and this hormonal triangle, I have to imagine those are like intimate, like one is kind of the physical manifestation of this limbic emotional. When you're starting to deal with that, I have at least one friend who talks about having adrenal fatigue. It's probably in the same arena. Do you start kind of addressing emotional first, or do you kind of play around with hormones, or what's your approach? Because that's I mean, it's your usual go-to, so it's probably the thing that can have the biggest impact.
So one of the things that I think is really important is to realize that it's not one size fits all. So I
Mm.
don't have everybody start here. And I know a lot of people disagree with me about that, but this is what I have found. I have found what is helpful is to go with the place that I know. I go to two places first. You have your choice. You go to either the place where if you can shift this one thing, it's going to have impact on all the others, because all of these root causes do interplay and interact with each other, and we can talk more about how they do specifically. There's so much overlay between them. If you work on the root that's under the root, then you can have that. Let me explain through a patient that I had. This is somebody I saw decades ago, and she came in, she had fibromyalgia, she had migraines, she was extreme exhaustion, she was like a corporate leader, executive suite person, also did all this volunteer work, but wasn't functioning very well. My front desk staff told me that she would get really cranky with them, which is an interesting thing. She was nice with me, but she would get very cranky with them. And she came in because I did this food sensitivity testing at the time. She'd heard about it. She also had SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and some IBS kind of stuff. And, she's basically a mess. And I took her history before we did the food testing. And I learned about all this kind of stuff. And it all had gotten much worse after she'd had a motor vehicle accident. And whenever something's ever since this thing happened, it makes me think of a couple different things. And so I thought, well, gosh, does she have a reactivated virus, or what's going on with her? And I thought about all the different things that we could go through with her. I also knew with the way she was talking that I could tell she was in absolute limbic dysfunction. She really had a lot of limbic dysfunction signs and symptoms. She had multiple chemical sensitivity, which is one of the signs that you have limbic dysfunction. She was always waiting for the next shoe to drop, which was sort of that anxiety of like, there's this thing that's going to happen. It's going to be bad. It's happening next. Her lens was negative. I talked about my apocalyptic view. I was in limbic dysfunction. I don't have that anymore. So that's limbic dysfunction. And I knew that I could work with her for 6 months and have her do all the tests in the world. And we could do all of these workups and have her try a whole bunch of protocols. But I also knew that if we could get her to shift that limbic brain, that there was a whole lot that would clear out with shifting the limbic brain, and then we could come and work on whatever's left. And that's what I told her. And she was like, she was confused, and she came back. She's like, why did you tell me to just do this? I'm like, this is why. And then she did it, and she was so grateful, and she really shifted that limbic brain. And so then there was just a little bit of stuff that we cleaned up after that, but there really wasn't a lot more to do. And so that's like the root under the root under the root. I could have gone down many paths with her because she had them all. She had every single one of those. But that was the one that I knew. Now, somebody else, it might be something different. So it's not the same for everyone. So it's part of what are you listening for as a clinician, and if you're taking care of yourself, if you're guiding your own journey, it's learning how to listen to what your body is telling you. Your body's telling you a story, and it's learning how to listen to that, to get educated to what are the messages that your body's giving you, and become your own detective. And then part of it is a trial and error process that you need to do as a practitioner, you need to do for yourself to see, how does my body respond to this? Is it helping? Is it not helping?
Did you, in your mind, do you have an explanation for this cascade of negative stuff coming out of the car accident? Like, was that for her some sort of representation of, yes, in fact, there is a shoe about to drop all the time, and that's the trigger?
I don't remember her case well enough to think about what things. I think that her setup, I'm sure her setup was way earlier than that. Usually the setup for that limbic brain dysfunction is much earlier. And again, it's the same setup that leads us to the person that's like, oh, am I good enough? I don't think I'm good enough. I better work extra hard. I better do this. I better show up. I better, outperform. I got to do all this stuff. And some of that is, a lot of us that are driven in that way, it's wonderful because we're able to do a lot and create a lot and hopefully help lots of people. And yet at some point, taking a look at where does that drive come from? And is it really serving me? And is it really serving others? If it's not serving me, becomes a question we have to ask. I think she was one of those people that was type A, kind of overdoing it. And it probably came from something that was very early, whether it's a generational inheritance inside of her subconscious mind and or childhood stuff that was the setup for her. And I think the car accident and the subsequent chronic pain she was in after that was the thing that was a physiological trigger to, we're not okay. So that limbic brain is connected to the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in the body, and it connects with all the different organs. That nervous system is always communicating back and forth. Are we safe? Are we okay? Are we not okay? And the limbic brain's always surveying for safety and danger. Part of that limbic brain, that subconscious brain, is formed from, again, what we inherit and also from our early childhood experiences. And so if we have a filter towards things aren't always that safe, dad yells, not so safe when dad's yelling, or, whatever, like not so good, or, siblings are mean to me or whatever, that starts to tilt things a little bit that way. You add on some dysbiosis, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, bad diet, whatever, infection in your gut, then you've got messages coming up, not safe, from your gut, not safe, to your limbic brain. You've got that filter, not safe. You get in a car accident, trauma. I wasn't safe. I was supposed to be safe, and I wasn't safe. An unexpected accident happened. And then you get physical pain, and then you get signals, I'm not safe. I'm in pain. I'm not safe. I'm not safe. And it begins to tilt the system, and you get into this dysregulated limbic position.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
I know that there's a lot of, probably all of us at some point, not all of us, but almost all of us struggle with kind of negative thoughts, right? Like I'm kind of wrapping up a longevity fast track program, and week one is mindset, and a piece of mindset is what do you do about these negative thoughts?
Yes.
My argument is you don't make them disappear. You actually drive them out with positive thoughts. Because the classic, hey, I'm going to ask you to not think about a pink elephant. You can't stop that until I say, start thinking about, I don't know, a green rhinoceros. Then you can replace it.
Yeah.
So I'm dying to know, like, what did you prescribe? Like, what was the thing that she came back was like, why'd you tell me to do this? What kind of stuff was it that
Yeah.
sent her away from your office to do?
So this was decades ago, and we had a few tools back then. I actually sent her to do one of the limbic retraining programs, and
Mm.
then she came back and she's like, my back pain's gone. I have more energy. Still have a little bit of SIBO, but we can work on that. No problem. I feel way better, and I'm not tearing. I'm not shouting at your front desk person anymore. I'm
Well,
actually
you can admit,
emotionally regulated. Amazing.
you can admit, goal one was to get her so that she stopped shouting at your staff, and then you were going to help her. That's fair.
I hired and trained my staff intentionally for a lot of the people that we work with. They are emotionally dysregulated, and
Mm,
they can't help it sometimes. So,
yeah. I'm not familiar with limbic retraining.
Oh, really?
I don't want to get bogged down in that, but I'm going to find it fascinating. Maybe talk a little bit about what that is.
Sure. So limbic retraining, it has lots of different names. So there's a number of different programs out there, and what I was going to say is that now we also have other tools that we know also access that part of the brain, and there are other ways of doing it. I think there's a number of different doorways into getting this limbic emotional brain resettled through doing subconscious work, through doing somatic work, these kinds of things. And I think that a lot of things that you hear about all the time really support all of this. So when you hear somebody talking about vagal work, that's part of it. It's not all of it, it's part of it. When you hear people talk about somatic, it's part of it, not all of it. Limbic retraining, Ashok Gupta has a program, Annie Hopper has a program, Kate, I can't remember her last name, Dr. Kate has Primal Trust. It's a great program. They're all slightly different programs. I encourage people, if they're looking at it, to get one that suits them.
Mm.
And it's really going through and each one is different in terms of how they're functioning, but they are reconnecting the neural networks in your brain, disconnecting what fires together, wires together. It's that principle. And so if you're associating this trauma with being unsafe, it's reconnecting into a place of safety, and it brings the body back into balance. It's pretty phenomenal. I used to be very chemically sensitive, and after I did this training, I can now smell soaps in the airport, and they don't bother me. It's amazing.
Wow. Okay. So you send her away. She comes back, and you kind of iron out the rest of the small things that were still kind of causing problems with her. I saw an interview with you. I think it was with Dr. I'm going to say it wrong, Ruscio, Dr.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fascinating guy. I had the opportunity to interview him briefly at some event, which was very cool. And he provided great guidance. So I really appreciative of him. You were talking about being uncomfortable associating kind of autoimmune conditions with kind of these, the three fatiguers. Where do you sit on that? Because it sounded like maybe you're in limbo in that kind of thought process.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we had a conversation a couple years ago, and I don't remember that exact line from that. But what I would say, where I'm thinking now in terms of autoimmune conditions and what is autoimmune. So people talk about autoimmune disease as your body attacking yourself. And one, I think that we now know that the body is more sophisticated than that. An autoimmune condition is really your immune system is having a large reaction to something. What is that is it having a reaction to? It could be that it's having a reaction to something that we just can't see, that we can't pick up, and it knows more than we do. There may be a chronic virus in your thyroid, and that's why you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's not that your immune system's so dumb that it starts to attack your thyroid. It's that it's like, come on, people, there's a lot of Epstein-Barr virus stuck in there, and so we're trying to get rid of it, and it's causing an inflammatory response. And I'm sorry if we're damaging some of your thyroid in the process. We're not that sophisticated of a tool. Can you please come help us? So I think sometimes these autoimmune conditions are a sign. Again, what is your body telling you? Your body's telling you that there's something going on that's out of balance, and it's part of your responsibility to figure out what's going on that's causing that reaction. Is it a heavy metal? Is it a toxin that's in your body that's reacting to? Or is it a ghost? Was there a pattern of something that was already there that's now gone, but your immune system is kind of doing this molecular mimicry thing. It thinks it's seen something, but it's not quite there. Like in long COVID, we could say that for some people, it might be that there's some kind of autoimmune like thing. We don't really know. We know that there are people with long COVID who are, some people with long COVID, I can do a lab test on them and I can see that their spike protein antibodies are on the roof. And if that's the case, I know that their immune system is still responding to a viral insult. Whether that is they're still creating a spike protein somewhere, or whether it's a viral fragment, or whether it is a ghost, a molecular mimicry type of thing where it thinks it got in the habit of responding to this thing and it's gone, but it's still doing it. We don't know. But that would be kind of an autoimmune type of thing. I think that in terms of autoimmune, when we talk about the mitochondria and people with myalgic encephalitis or long COVID, I think there's probably a group of us who may have a tendency towards mitochondrial dysfunction, whether that's an inherited thing or what it is. Is there an autoimmune process in there? I think for some people there is, but again, what triggered it? Why? Like, is it because, again, the immune system is so dumb that it's just blowing up your mitochondria? Or is it that your mitochondria is housing, again, a heavy metal or, some other things and not functioning normally? And so now your immune system is attacking it because it doesn't recognize it. And I think those are some of the questions I have. I think I have more questions than answers right now around that. I don't have this is the truth on autoimmune and blah, blah, blah. Because I don't think literally, I just think we have more questions than answers around that. But yeah.
I suspect that a lot of the root causes of autoimmune diseases are mapping the root causes that you've outlined here, right? Like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I have so many patients that have come in like, I've been diagnosed with this autoimmune condition, and my rheumatologist said to just come back in 10 years when I'm in a lot of pain and they'll give me drugs for it, but there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, oh, come on. That's BS. There's so much we can do. Let's look at this and this and this. And they end up not only feeling better, there's the test that the doctor gave them to diagnose that autoimmune condition is now negative. Like it doesn't even show up. Like they've gone negative. And that's happened so many times by addressing. I have these 5 health foundations that I'm always doing with people, looking at the 5 health foundations, seeing which one of these root causes are impacting them and addressing them. And then the body can go back into balance. We have this innate ability to heal within us. It's this vitae life force. And when we turn that on, the body goes back into balance. So it's really about getting the things out of the way so that you can activate your own healing system.
So you just mentioned your 5 health foundations. Let's jump into those.
Sure. So the first one is digestion and detoxification. That's one, and I lump them together. And so that's, what are you eating? How's your body breaking it down? How are you able to process your toxins? All those kinds of things. The second one is rhythm and sleep, because sleep doesn't just start with your nightly ritual, sleep hygiene ritual. It starts with your how you wake up in the morning. So that circadian rhythm is so essential. Circadian rhythm and sleep is the second one. The third one is looking at movement and breath. Those two are very interconnected with each other. That heart and the lung really work together well. And the other one is called mindset and spirit. To your point of starting your longevity program with mindset and spirit is so important. What are we saying to ourselves? What's the feeling tone that we live in? What's the energy that emotional energy that is the milieu that our cells swim in? Because we know that has its own energetic imprint and pattern that impacts our mitochondria and impacts our DNA. And what is that, and how can you shift it? And then I used to just have the 4 foundational pillars of health, but during the pandemic, this 5th one came in, and it's connection. And that's because there was so much disconnection, so much isolation, and we realized how hard it was. I know I really struggled with that towards the end. And when I talk about connection, it's connection with yourself. And back to that, paying attention to what is your body saying to you. And it's connection with your community, with your family, with your community, with the circles around you. And then it's also connection with your higher self, whatever that means for you. So is that nature? Do you have a spiritual practice? What is that thing that's bigger than you? that you can connect with. And it's not about belief. It's just, we know that we're also this energy body. And so what is it about, how is it that you connect and clear that energy body? So connection is all of those things.
I love it. So my fast track is 8 weeks, and each of the weeks fits into what you just described.
Nice.
I
Nice.
add, and they might be a little, well, one might be a little superfluous, which is biohacking, right? So a week of biohacking, which is, just about cleaning up kitchen and, getting sunlight and stuff. And then I do have a little bit more focus on stress. It's great that these are the same. When you're thinking about detoxing, is there something that kind of keeps coming up over and over again that people need to detox? I know there's conversations about fillings in your teeth, or is there anything that just keeps coming up and you're like, hey, a lot of people should at least consider this and think about they might need to detox from this.
I think that detoxification should be a daily practice that we all have in this day and age. Wherever you are in the world, there's just a lot of toxins that we've created. I mean, through a lot of things that I think are ingenious and really fun and wonderful, like, big buildings and fun cars to drive and stuff. We've pulled a lot of stuff out of the earth. We've made things, but now it's in the air and our bodies don't know how to handle it. And they are hard on us. And I really think we need to support our bodies daily through daily detoxification practices and rituals that we do. Simple things like drinking enough water, making sure that you can absorb the water you're drinking. If you need electrolytes in there, drink electrolytes, or, what is it that your body needs? Is it hydrogen water? What kind of water do you need? Doing things like where you're sweating, if you can sweat, however is good for you that your body can handle at that time, doing skin brushing. And the skin brushing is for moving the lymphatic system, which is like the lymphatic system is the garbage service that comes and picks up your garbage from the curb. You need to do your lymphatic brushing to get that garbage to the curb so that you can efficiently detox while you sleep. These kinds of things, breathing deeply, we hold a lot of toxins in our lungs and we don't realize it. So doing conscious deep breath can be very purifying for the body. So these kinds of simple activities that we can incorporate through our day. And then the next level up would be, back to my love of herbs, what are some detoxifying herbs or teas that you can just drink as part of your day, or maybe seasonally or monthly? So just kind of bringing in incorporation of, I'm doing this every day for myself to help support my body. And then other people need to be supplementing for detox. I mean, I know your product is great for mopping up stuff, and that can be really helpful for people who need something like that. And there are a lot of places that we can go out there in terms of detoxification. But back to the system of like how integrated we all are. I had a patient who was very, very sick with mold, huge major traumas, childhood trauma, very sick with mold, very sick with chronic viruses, really very not functioning. And it was really interesting because, again, this is decades ago, and there's so much more I know now that would have made it faster to treat him than it was back then, but I was learning a lot decades ago. And I remember listening to this talk about how when the body's under stress, when the body feels like it's going to die, which is what happens with that limbic dysfunction, or when you're on that sympathetic stress express, you are not able to get into that parasympathetic rest and digest mode on a regular basis. It shuts down the detoxification systems. So if you have extra heavy metals in your body, if you have extra pesticides, if you have mycotoxins, and you're under severe stress, your body is not going to prioritize getting rid of those toxins. It's going to push them away. It's going to pack it away in your fat or in a tissue somewhere in a joint and cause pain. It's not going to release it because it can't. And so there's a real connection between this whole nervous system, the stress, the mindset, all of that kind of piece, and this detoxification. So, and then in terms of, in my population, what I see, I often have people do a mitochondrial challenge to see if we can get energy for them. And if they fail that mitochondrial challenge in the first 5 days, to me, that's a sign that their mitochondria are gummed up. And the first test that I usually run on them is a urine heavy metals test, because I find that's the most common thing that people are stuck with.
Interesting. You mentioned lymphatic brushing. Is that what is that? Is that different than lymphatic massage?
Lymphatic massage is much deeper and more comprehensive and wonderful, and it's used therapeutically. So natural skin, I'm looking to see if I have anything here to even just grab to show you. So it's super simple and fast. You can do it in 60 seconds. You can take a natural sponge or an exfoliation mitt, and you're not trying to defoliate, you're not rubbing hard. It's just gentle, very gentle across the skin movement, brushing always towards the heart. So down the face, up from the feet and the legs, up the belly, up towards the heart, always towards the heart, and back down and up your back best you can. And doing this before bed is best because that's when your lymphatic system is doing the work at nighttime. Your liver goes through another process of breaking down toxins while you're sleeping, which is another reason why, if you can, it's good to avoid that late night eating, because it allows the liver to actually detoxify the toxins. And this, again, you're moving the garbage out to the street, and then the garbage system can pick it up, and everybody can do their job while you rest, and you can release all the toxins from your brain through your lymphatics while you're sleeping. And yeah, it's good stuff.
I just have to share, like, lymphatic massage is the most relaxing massage. Like, it is and I've been, getting, my wife owns a spa, so I'm very lucky I get to go to the spa regularly. And lately I've been doing deep tissue massage, which is not lymphatic massage. It is not necessarily pleasant. Where we've worked through almost all of my knots, so we're about to, maybe get to the point where we're doing lymphatic massage, and so it's absolutely spectacular. So with Dr. Ruscio, you talked about the trauma cell response. What is that, and what impact? And I, try and keep it tight, because I've got one more question, and then we'll get to wrap up.
Okay, all right. So the trauma cell response, or the cell danger response, it's often called, is when the body goes into this thing called torpor or sleepiness sickness syndrome, and it's something you can actually look up on PubMed. So what happens is that this can be triggered by a multitude of ways, but one of the ways that can happen is the mitochondria can actually be under distress from a virus invading it, from toxin overload, from all different kinds of things. And it will intentionally leak ATP out into the cell, into the tissue. And that ATP becomes an alarm bell for the immune system and the nervous system. And if that alarm bell is big enough, if you have enough things stacking up to trigger that limbic brain into I'm in a danger state, then it sets off this 5-alarm fire throughout the body, and it interacts with your nervous system, your hormonal system, your immune system, all these different things, and your body goes into this thing called torpor, sleepiness, shutdown, hibernation syndrome. And it's where your whole system gets down regulated and slows down. From a physical standpoint, you're more fatigued, and I talk about this in different ways, but it's literally like you're kind of frozen and you're in a safety response. And from a limbic brain perspective, it's as if it's surveyed and said, you know what? I don't know what's going on out there, Jenny, but it does not look safe to me. So I'm going to elevate your pain. I'm going to elevate your fatigue. I'm going to send out these neurotransmitters that make you want to socially isolate. So you go back in your cave, because I want you to live. I want you to stay safe. So you go back and hide. And so that's what happens. And so people get the fibromyalgia, the chronic fatigue, the long COVID feelings because of this overwhelming system in their body and the cell danger response.
Okay. Thank you. And then, if someone is listening, feels exhausted, inflamed, or out of balance, where should they start?
Oh, they should start with really, well, there's so many places to start. So first, you do need to make sure that there aren't any elephants in the room. So if you're fatigued and exhausted, they are really general feelings, and they could be as simple as anemia, or they could be more complicated like cancer. So, you really do need to go see your doctor, and to be sure there isn't an elephant in the room that's either easy or more challenging to work with, and get that addressed. If you get told all of your labs are normal, honey, are you sure you're not just a little depressed? Then find another doctor and get somebody who knows how to walk you through this complex situation. Find a guide, find somebody you like, finding somebody who's knowledgeable to help guide you. If you're doing this on your own, there's a ton of information out there in the world in terms of, things that, I've shared, other people have shared. It's out there, it's in the world. You can take the time and put it together and create a map for yourself. But know it's going to take time. Know it's one step at a time. And also never give up hope. Always know that it's possible for your body to return to balance. It's just just going to be one thing after another thing after another thing that you need to add in. And then at some point it just flips and you feel much better.
Excellent. And they can work with you online, right? You've got some programs and stuff, and
Correct.
we'll give you a place to give links here in a
Correct.
little bit.
I do. Yes, I have. I work with a few people one-on-one where I bring them on to work with me for a year, and we do we work really closely together. And then I also have a group program, and I have a number of online programs as well.
Okay, well, we'll get links to those here in just a second. Before we get to wrap up questions, do you anything? I mean, you're so knowledgeable. Like we could talk for more hours. Anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you would have liked to have touched on?
I really think I think only thing that I would say is just kind of reiterating that if you are struggling with fatigue, or you know somebody who is struggling with fatigue, with either with brain fog, with fatigue, with changes in their brain. And this is the thing that I'm most concerned about right now, is I think that a lot of people are walking around undiagnosed with long COVID and don't know that they have it, or they don't know they have myalgic encephalitis. Like whichever label you get, you're walking around thinking that if you just got to the gym, if you just did this one thing, then it would go away. And too often it's easy to assume that we don't have these conditions, whereas it's really important to address this condition because of what I said in the beginning. We now know that there's this link between your moods, between your brain fog and your fatigue, and what dementia is. It's all the same thing in terms of neuroinflammation in your brain. So in terms of living well throughout, having longevity, but having life quality, having health span, not just lifespan, as Dr. Bredesen says, it's really important that you address your root causes, that you address your health foundations. So please don't sweep it under the rug, don't put it aside, and don't think it's your fault. Just get the help you need to get your body back into this energetic state so that you can be the person you're meant to be here in the world and enjoy your life.
Awesome. All right. So here's our wrap-up questions. Do you have a target age that you want to live to?
Yeah, I'm much more about quality of life than quantity of life. So I have much more visions of what I want to be doing when I see people moving their body fluidly in their 80s and their 90s. When I see a 100-year-old who can still think and say beautiful things and speak well, those are the things that I hold in my mind is what I want. So I can play with I hope I get grandchildren. I can play with my grandchildren and, still be snowshoeing and, hiking and kayaking and things like that. That's what I want, is the flexibility, the mobility, the intelligence to still be there. I'm not afraid of dying. So I don't really have a need to stay here on the planet longer than is my time. So I don't have a number.
If you had everything you just described, what would the number be?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. It's funny I know you asked me like, how long do I think we can live? And maybe that's the next question.
Yep.
Maybe I'm cheating.
No, it's fine. You can cheat. Like,
the number 120 comes up to me as like being what's possible, but I don't know if that's I don't know if I'm just self-limiting, because I think there's a lot of our mind that we have only begun to tap into. And if we were to really understand the power of our mind, I don't know what is possible for us. And I think that's kind of what's next in terms of our evolution, is discovering that. So maybe we can live much longer than that, or maybe there's not a point to living longer than that. Maybe sort of our work is done. So, yeah.
So I'm jotting down a number. You want to live until you said the number 120. Do you think that's potentially a maximum?
Let's do 102. Let's do 102.
102. I like it.
If I'm able to do all those other things, that sounds fine. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets? Let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts, that you would share for longevity and health?
Yeah, so I think that working on the forgiveness piece is huge. Forgiving yourself, forgiving others. I think the resentment and the anger are really life-shortening for us all. And I think that coming to a place of love and compassion in your being, I think that's one of the beautiful things of aging, is coming into this wiser place and being able to sit there with more ease. And I think that those of you who are listening who are, much younger, the more you can bring this into your life sooner, your life is going to be freaking magic.
Excellent. All right. So that's 1, forgiveness. I love that. Maybe 2 more? 1 or 2 more?
I think hydration is super important. I think we underhydrate, and I think that's super easy and basic and reachable for most of us of just drinking more water. I mean, we really are mostly water, and you can get rid of a lot of crankiness and stuff by just hydrating. and one of yeah. And then the others, I think it comes down to, I look at all of those health foundations, but I really think nutrition is so important, and choosing what you're eating consciously, choosing what you're eating and putting in your body, and also how you eat in terms of gratitude and chewing your food and bringing that much in. I know that, many times I'm too busy to even think about doing that, and that's silly. It's like bringing that, why not? Why not just take a second and come back into gratitude that I get to eat this carrot right now?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
not? I'm here on the planet. I get a carrot. Oh my gosh. How crazy is that?
That's pretty awesome. So, what are one or two things people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
Well, I think it is getting obsessed. I think it's two things. I think it's one,
Mm.
getting obsessed with the number of like, I've got to live until this, I'm going to prove this, because I think it's a really, I'm sorry if this is offensive. I
No.
think it's a really machismo. I think it's a very like, kind of male machismo, like, what can I conquer? Oh my God, I can live until this. And I'm so sorry if that feels insulting to you, but I come from a place of like, to me, it's not that number. It's not that out there. It's like, what's in here? Like, what's in
Mm.
here in this moment? And partly I say this by watching my dad die and seeing how much like beauty and growth came out of the last few weeks of his life, of just what he shared in terms of in his process of passing. Like, there's so much more than just being here on the planet. So that, that's a whole other conversation. So I think focusing on that number, I also think I think that a lot of the longevity stuff is cool because I think it does really bring us into more health and focused on health. And I think that's a really good thing about it. I think it puts a lot of power back in your hands in terms of what you can do, instead of just saying aging is inevitable and being, sitting on a rocking chair staring off in space is inevitable when it's not. But I think what people also can get wrong, it's a slippery thing, is get focused on that thing out there fixing them and promising that golden age, rather than really owning the decisions we make every single day that impact our health more than anything. So it's really not the gadget or the thing or that. It's really, what are you doing? Like, what are you eating? How are you thinking? How are you breathing? How are you interacting with others? Like, that's really what it's about. And when we study the cultures that have lived the longest, the blue zones, that's what they're doing. That's what they're
Mm.
doing. They're just living a good life. They don't have all the fancy stuff. They're just living a good life.
Awesome. Dr. Tufenkian, how can people contact you?
My website's the best place, drjennytufenkian.com. That's drjenny, Jenny, Tufenkian, T as in Tom, U, F as in Frank, E, N as in Nancy, KIAN.com. And on there, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one or in my small groups, you can apply. It's through application only. My team will get back to you and we can set up an appointment to chat if it feels like a good fit. I only bring on people that I know are ready to do the work and I feel like I can actually honestly help. And there's lots of other information on the website as well.
Excellent. And you do summits? Do you have any summit that's coming out soon or
Yes,
anything?
so the summit, so yes, so including, you can check out the summit. So there's a summit on there. It's not right now. If you want to purchase it, you can. It's on the website and available. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. And on social media, what's your handle on social media?
I should know that, shouldn't I? I think it's Dr. Jenny Tufenkian. Jenny Tufenkian. It got taken down once and then I forget. Pretty sure my Instagram is Jenny Tufenkian. Honestly, there aren't that many Jenny Tufenkians out there, so
Yeah,
put in Jenny Tufenkian. You will
it
find
is
me.
it is Dr. dot, so I've confirmed. And
Thank you.
last question, what in the near future are you excited about?
So let's go big. So, even though we are in a crazy time right now in the world with so many things breaking down and so many systems falling apart, I am actually choose to be in a place of hope in terms of seeing that at the time of breakdown, there are breakthroughs, and the time of breakdown, there are seeds of change and growth. And I really see this as a very juicy time. I'm sorry for the collateral damage. It pains my heart, but I feel like this is a time where we can also choose to be in joy and start thinking about the world that we really want to be living in and creating. And so whatever that means for you, I feel like this is that time that we're in is a very potent time. And it's going to be looked back in history as being, wow, a lot happened right then. So what do we want to consciously create? And I feel very excited to be part of it, and I'm very excited to hopefully begin to see at least some of those seeds sprout in my lifetime.
Dr. Tufenkian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.